Shipwrecks in space are nothing new, but one such crash has revealed something truly terrifying on a little-known asteroid in the Halon Ring. What vile horrors lurk within? Fragment Zero.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Tiny Blue Games. My name, of course, is Csar Chris, and today we're playing WildStar. Yeah, it's that time of the week again. We get to do a WildStar video. I'm hoping to have 2 out this week, but fingers crossed because I do have actually a lot of interviews this week, which is very exciting on an unrelated note. But yeah, I'm pretty pumped for that. But I do have a lot of videos for you guys as well because I've planned ahead this time, which is great for me. I'm keeping this trend. I'm thinking we're going to make it at least 2 months of regular videos. No, we're going to make it the entire summer and into the next year because I'm going to stay committed and plan ahead. Anyways, enough about my future worries. We're going to talk about WildStar today. We saw last video that I had just finished the tutorial zone, sort of the new player experience. And to continue with that theme, I wanted to do a video on the first bit of instanced content that you get in the game. And that actually happens at level 6. So after leaving the tutorial zone from last video, I just went to the regular starting zone, did quests for about, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes, and I was at level 6. At which point you can actually go into the very first expedition, Fragment Zero. Now, expeditions, well, first off, let's talk about the fact that it's level 6. Level 6 is a really, really low level for many games to be able to do instance content. And I think that's one of the things that WildStar has and does better than almost any game I've played. They have a ton of different instance content, and it seems like it's only like 2 to 3 levels between each different new thing you can do, be it an expedition, a adventure, a dungeon. It really jumps around, but it always gives you something, you know, hey, in another couple levels here, I'm going to be able to do this new piece of content, try it out, have fun with it, and it really gives you something to look forward to as a player. And I was noticing that while questing in WildStar, actually, like just for the 15 to 20 minutes beforehand, there's a lot of little quality of life things that WildStar has that, you know, a lot of other MMOs don't have. Of course, there's other things that MMO, like, you know, different MMOs have that WildStar doesn't have. But it's interesting that such, you know, a game that's not played has a lot of things that, you know, I'm like, wow, if only Guild Wars 2 had this feature, or if only Black Desert Online, because I've been bouncing around a lot of MMOs lately, and I've really gotten to comparing them, both, you know, the combat, the graphics, but also these little quality of life things. And I think that's a whole video that I want to do because it could really talk about some of the features that WildStar does, maybe even the best in the entire MMO community right now. So if you know, have any particular quality of life feature that you really enjoy that WildStar does, leave it in the comments below. I'd like to know what you think the best quality of life features we have are, and I'd love to make it into a video, so leave that in the comments below. But let's get into the whole, you know, expedition adventure debate that I wanted to sort of talk about in this particular episode here. So in one of my past videos, I discussed how I would save WildStar. And I mean, obviously that title was very open to interpretation. I've had a lot of people who've been very supportive and given feedback into how they would change WildStar or what they wouldn't change about WildStar. And I've obviously had people, you know, who've come at me and said, you know, WildStar doesn't need to be saved. You know, these kind of videos make it seem doom and gloom. Well, there has to be some changes made to WildStar for it to be more successful, because it is running right now, but no one here thinks that this is as successful as WildStar hopes to be or ever hoped to be. I think we need to do a little bit more in terms of making it more growth oriented. And I mean, that's, you know, a consistent struggle for any MMO. Every game is trying to evolve or change slowly to promote more growth, promote new users, or bring back users that they'd lost. For instance, we saw Guild Wars 2 do a lot of changes in the Heart of Thorns expansion, where they stepped away a little bit from their casual roots and introduced raids, which it brought me back to the game. I was not playing Guild Wars 2 very regularly. They added something that was completely different for their game, and it changed things up. So I think even as a community, we have to be open to the fact that even though we might love the content that's in the game right now, we might have to shift things a bit when we go to the future. And one of the big things I talk about in the Saving WildStar video is that I think certain types of content should be discontinued, at least for now, and we should just refocus our commitments on certain pieces of content that WildStar does really, really well. And one of the key areas I think that there's a bit of overlap that there doesn't need to be is between expeditions and adventures. Now, looking at them, they are a bit different. And when the game first started, they were quite different. First off, expeditions were called ship hands. And they were just very much a sort of contained story. I actually just mostly thought of them as solo content myself. And then adventures were, in my sense, just beginner dungeons kind of thing. Even then, though, there was a bit of overlap between adventures and dungeons I didn't like. So I'm going to come out right and say it that I don't like adventures. I think it should go expeditions, dungeons, raids. That gives a lot more clarity in terms of like what purpose each one is. Just to make that more clear, and I'm using the word clear a lot here, but to explain myself a bit better, expeditions can be scalable from 1 to 5 players, and they are shorter, easier than dungeons, more designed for newish players, and a good way to just get your foot in the door in terms of instance content. This is pretty much everything that adventures try to do, except adventures are just locked at 5 players and you can't solo them, which is kind of difficult based on how low the population is, especially in lower level brackets. It's really hard to get a queue for adventures. Whereas expeditions, you can queue for people. You can queue for a few people, you can queue with a few people, or you can queue by yourself. So there's a lot of options, and it gives you the ability, if it's Monday in the morning and no one's playing the game or something like that. I don't know when the peak hour is or when the off hours are of WildStar necessarily. But during the week's probably less busy. And because of that, it's probably extremely hard to queue and find 5 full people, 1 tank, 1 healer to do an adventure. However, if you could just queue for it as an individual, you can do that anytime. So that allows you to play all of the expeditions whenever you want. But then on the weekend, when it is a peak hour and you're interested in playing with people, or if you have some people that you're in a group with and trying to level with, you can do it to 2, 3, 4, 5 people easily. So that ability to scale really wins out the expedition versus adventure thing to me. And sure, I guess the biggest defense is that adventures have offered a whole new style of content that many other games haven't seen. And I do agree with you there. Specifically, like some of the ones like Malgrave Trail and like the idea of being able to choose your own path. Like they played with a lot of different ideas that don't work in traditional dungeons and haven't worked in other games before. The issue with it, and I think adventures have failed slightly because of this, is that MMO players, no matter what game, no matter where, no matter who, are almost always looking for the most rewarding way to do something. So if you give a bunch of choices, let's look at Malgrave Trail again, people are going to try them all once, maybe, and then there's going to be a guide online telling you which way to do it the fastest. And I want everyone on here, to think about it, but do you go into Malgrave Trail, and you might not have gone to Malgrave Trail for a long time because adventures are kind of useless right now, but when you did run Malgrave Trail, you always took the same option route that was the known to be the best or fastest way. And because of that, the excitement that's supposed to be there with choice, it gets removed, and it's kind of failed because of that. So not only do I think that the options and different ways to choose your path needs to be looked at a bit in terms of adventures, I think, and it's quite easy to use this exact same technology, the adventure style, and try these more different objectives in expeditions. There's no reason you couldn't have a scalable one-man soloable Malgrave Trail instance where, maybe you get a few bodyguards in the group with you to sort of help defend the caravan, and you just do a lot of the tasks by yourself. Now, I'm sure not everything would easily be scalable to one person. You'd have to work some things out and figure it out how it could work on a one-person level. But I think if they could shift a few of these things into expeditions and then just progress on expeditions into the future, that's a lot better use of their time. And honestly, I think the devs have kind of come to this realization themselves. What have we seen more in terms of getting added to the game? Arguably, we've seen the most amount of expeditions added to the game. We've seen no adventures from what I understand, and we've just recently got, well, I guess we got the proto games as well, but we've got a few dungeons and then a raid. But I think the expeditions are very much on the dev team's level in terms of how much effort they're able to put in. And it's also one of the most rewarding pieces of content because not only the most, experienced players can play it, but anyone who's new to the game, anyone who's just playing by themselves, everyone can access expeditions. And that's where they should be spending their time. They shouldn't be spending it on adventures that you need to have 5 people to do, which can only be done during extreme peak hours or with a guild or a group finder, and that have now become irrelevant. It's just not a very healthy thing for the game to work on. So that's my bit on this. I know it's a bit controversial. Some people might love adventures and just the entire idea of removing or stopping to work on a type of content might just freak people out. And I completely get that. But radical change is not always bad. And just because they stop working on something doesn't mean it, has to never be worked on again. So say they just make a roadmap for the future. And in that roadmap, they say, we're going to pause development on adventures, which would be very similar to how things have been anyways. It would just be an official statement. They say that, and they say they're going to, double down on the amount of expeditions they can, is sort of try and see if expeditions can fulfill the role of adventures moving forward. They do that. They start really focusing their content and maybe even some of their advertisements on some of these really cool stories they can tell in expeditions, because that's a whole nother thing. I think the idea of going into space, and that's something that expeditions do great. They go into space, they go into spaceships, they go on the moon, they go to these really cool areas that WildStar has to offer. And it seems to be the one type of content that they're very open to going to those areas in. So it shows off what the game tries to accomplish in the best little package. And I think if they could work on those, really advertise those as sort of the stepping stone and questing experience for WildStar, I think that would really bring in a lot of new people. Now, I actually don't know, if that is their player base. That's just what I assume. And that's what a lot of people and a lot of games assume. For instance, Guild Wars 2, people are always wanting more casual content. And, it's difficult to say you're not going to work on something. It's hard to say we're going to postpone working on adventures for a long time. But if you say that and you give them at least something else to work on and something else to look forward to, it's a lot better. Instead of just saying, we're not going to do adventures anymore and leaving it at that. That's going to be a bad sign. But saying we're going to shift our resources from adventures to expedition development, I think people could be pretty supportive of that. But I want to hear what you guys think in the comments below. Do you think that expeditions could fulfill what adventures do? Do you think that they could do it better, or do you think that adventures are needed in the game, even though that they're not being played super, a ton right now? Maybe they just need some better rewards, and people will come back to them. And you think that they should stay in the game? I'd love to hear what you guys think about that. So, I guess I should also talk about, was this a pretty good leveling experience for me? I played it. It took me about 22 minutes in the end, which was fine. I've played Fragment Zero a fair amount, which is also fine. Because of that, I think it was kind of... It's a very exciting instance. It's just I've played it so often, and the fact that you're killing, the same monsters over and over again gets a little bit tiring, but it was pretty rewarding. I got about a level and 15% from it in 22 minutes, which isn't too bad. At the level 6, that's probably not, the fastest way to get experience, but going further up, that would be a pretty good way to get a level. And I think that's what maybe they should look at, is having adventures account for at least one level whenever you do it for the first time. Have maybe the quest you get within there give you a ton of experience. So even at level 30 or 40, the first time you do this adventure or expedition, you're going to get like a whole level, and it makes it really rewarding, and it makes it so that people at that level want to do it and want to queue into it. Now, the other thing you could explore is offering extra reward for being in groups. I don't know if there could be like a group experience bonus at the end to just sort of encourage people to at least try looking for a group before they go to individual. But that's a whole nother topic for debate as to how rewards could be distributed based on the amount of people in it. You know, is it 1, is it 5, or is it somewhere in between? So that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about. Leave the comments in the below about WildStar and any WildStar content you want to see. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.